My name is Jake, and today we are looking at number 94 in my top 102 album countdown. And it is, of course, none other than Cat Stevens' legendary Tea for the Tillerman. This was Cat Stevens' fourth studio album. Second he released that year along with Mona Bone Jacone, released November 23rd, 1970. And I would consider this his breakthrough album for a number of reasons. First of all, Wild World is one of the most beloved songs ever. Secondly, a few songs on here and plenty of other Cat Stevens songs are featured in one of my favorite films of all time, Harold and Maude. And he fits the film perfectly, in my opinion. And lastly, I feel like these songs are really the best representation of who Cat Stevens is as an artist. And they are so very relevant today. These songs have not lost their touch by any stretch of the imagination. And before I get into them, most of you may know that Cat Stevens or Yusuf Islam re-recorded this album and released it last year. It's called Tea for the Tillerman Squared, if you haven't heard it. And I really genuinely love both. I love them both for completely different reasons. If you're taking the whole father and son thing, this is the son, that album's the father. If you've listened to both of them, you know exactly what I mean. And I'll touch on the big differences, but as for right now, I'm probably just going to review the original classic. And now, onto the songs. Track 1, Where Do the Children Play? Beautiful opener. It's essentially about sort of man-made inventions just taking over the planet and not for the better. This is one of the many reasons why I love Cat Stevens' music. He speaks to the child in you. He has a very pure way of life in these songs, and I treasure that in music. It's so easy to go the, sex, drugs, and rock and roll route. Not just in your lifestyle, but, in your music, no matter what genre you are. I really treasure it's not kids' music, but it is so good for kids to listen to. And it hits so much harder as an adult. One last thing, I recently just listened to this song again on a road trip previously, and it's the line where he says, "Will you roll on roads over fresh green grass for your lorry loads pumping petrol gas?" I'm like, oh, this probably isn't the song I should be listening to. But it's a good song to look out the window and think about your life to. Track 2, Hard-Headed Woman. This is probably one of my favorite love songs ever. It's definitely one of my favorite melodies on the album, by far. And it's essentially about him yearning for there's such a good lyric in here. The whole song lyrically is fantastic, but there's one. "I know many fine-feathered friends, but their friendliness depends on how you do. They know many surefire ways to find out the one who pays and how you do." Now, on this version, he says, "I'm looking for a hard-headed woman." On the new version, he says, "I found myself a hard-headed woman," in, of course, reference to his now wife, and I think that was just touched my heart. Track 3, Wild World. This is, as I said before, probably his most beloved song ever. And it was the first one I ever heard, and it's definitely one of the most nostalgic songs ever to me. I heard it when I was very young, and, Cat Stevens sings with such wonder and innocence, and obviously, when I heard it, I was, a kid, and I, couldn't relate to what he was talking about. But, like, he just captivated me with his voice and his songwriting. And, I mean, I knew right then and there that I was listening to something great. Now, this would initially seem to be a breakup song. However, fun fact, as some of you probably know, Cat Stevens, or Yusuf, was singing to himself here. And the wild world in question is, I'm pretty sure, was the music world, which he was returning to after a near-death bout with tuberculosis. I mean, gosh, I couldn't... If we lost Cat Stevens that early, I mean, oh my gosh. It's like, obviously, I don't know what the world would have been like without this music or the rest of the stuff he recorded afterwards, but I can tell you it would have been a lot darker place than it already is. Also, this probably has the most dramatic change on the new version. It's got a very, like, swingy, jazzy feel to it, and it's like a completely different song. And to tell you the truth, I'm here for every minute of it. Both versions, I think. Obviously, this one is a little more important to me, but the newer version is a great song in its own complete right. Track 4, Sad Lisa. This is absolutely one of my favorites. It's probably one of the most heart-wrenching songs I've ever heard. And Yusuf has said at 2 different times that this is about 2 different things. Before I get right into that, he did an interview recently where he broke down track by track every song on the new version for Entertainment Weekly. Definitely give that interview a read. It's very, very insightful. And in that one, he said that this is about an actual girl named Lisa that he knew. But in 1971, about a year after this came out, he said that he was reflecting on himself. And I think both certainly could have been an inspiration, but I think he, I believe he said, like, he kind of tried to make interviews a little more interesting back in the day. So, I mean, he's an enigma within himself, but that's why I love him. I mean, this whole song is a masterpiece. Lyrically, instrumentally, the violin, viola. I don't know, maybe someone who's well-versed in classical music can help me out down there below in the comments, if you so please. Track 5, Miles from Nowhere. This is such a beautiful, heartfelt song. I love the backing harmonies on it, and it's basically, in a nutshell, about his quest for spirituality. And it's a very common theme in Yusuf's work, even before he converted to Islam. Definitely, I feel like one of his most soulful vocals on this one. Also fits Harold and Maude perfectly. Track 6, But I Might Die Tonight. This was originally written for the film Deep End, and when I was talking earlier about his songs, or the songs on this album at least, aging very well or still being relevant and whatnot, this song is exactly what I meant. The topics of this song, they are more prevalent now, probably more so than ever. Yusuf summed it up best. He said, "That song is talking about people who feel that life is in somebody else's hands. You've got to take ownership, because you might die tonight." I mean, it's a very real, yet I feel very inspirational song. It is like the realist's positive playlist, if you will. I love his sort of vocalizing in the intro and throughout the song, and I especially love his line delivery. You can definitely tell that this is one that meant a lot to him. Track 7, Longer Boats. Probably the catchiest song on the album. This will absolutely be stuck in your head for the rest of the day once you listen to it. It's he said this was about an experience that he had with a UFO back when this song first came out, but he later came out saying many years later that that was essentially a bunch of BS. He said that this is essentially just, quote, a plea for human unity in face of external threats. Also, the newer version starts out pretty much the same as this, but then it goes into this sort of funk bridge with a brief rap appearance from Brother Ali. Yusuf's more hardcore than I thought. Track 8, Into White. This is one of Yusuf's favorites, and I can totally see why. It sums him up beautifully. It's such like a delicate song. Hi, actual cat. This is basically about, just a celebration of life's simplicity, and I've been using this word a lot, but innocence. And that is really just the general theme of this album and pretty much all Cat Stevens' work. And I really, like I said earlier, I treasure artists who savor that. Track 9, On the Road to Find Out. Another song about his quest for spirituality. Another song that fits Harold and Maude just perfectly. This song contains one of my favorite lyrics on the whole album. He says, "But sometimes you have to moan when nothing seems to suit you, but nevertheless, you're locked towards the future." I think that if I had to pinpoint one lyric that sums this whole thing up accurately, that would have to be the one. Track 10, Father and Son. This is one of the most perfect and most hard-hitting songs I think ever recorded in popular music. It's essentially a conversation of, a father talking to his son who is about to go away. Yusuf has a quote on this song which I think is just perfect. He said, "Some people think that I was taking the son side, but how could I have sung the father side if I couldn't have understood it too?" He's right. He's exactly right. And you could tell he understands both. He sings the father side with kind of a more subdued sadness. And then with the son, he's just straight up raw emotion. And it is... I don't think it's a stretch to say that Cat Stevens is a musical genius. I don't think that's much of a bold statement. This song is proof, if anything, that he understands human emotion better than most artists on the planet. A thought occurred to me while listening to this song on the newer version. I say about a lot of artists that have passed, I say, oh, we need them now more than ever, I say that about George Carlin a lot. I say that about Robin Williams a lot. Plethora of musicians. But Cat Stevens is not only someone we need now more than ever, but who we still have, and who is actually recording music now that we need it more than ever. What a blessing. Track 11, final track, T for the Tillerman. Perfect outro. It completely represents the, once again, innocence, and this is definitely, it's only a minute long, but it's probably the most optimistic and hopeful song on the album. To quote Yusuf, I love this song, I love the Tillerman. Overall, if the world has your soul at a bit of an unrest, and you feel like you're losing your way, losing your sense of self or your innocence, or anything like that, give this album a listen. It may not cure your problems, but you're sure as hell going to find someone who understands them. And, it is such a sobering listen, especially this time around. You will find, if you are one of the few people that haven't heard this album, or any of Cat Stevens' work, he is definitely one of our most treasured and gifted artists. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it more than you know. If you have anything you want me to talk about, music or film related, or review, whatever, if it's, like I've said earlier, if it's music or film related, no matter what it is, really, I'll do it. Talk about it, review it, etc. Just drop it down below in the comments. My name is Jake. I'll be back.